Okay, we're gonna start on the basics. That's what one. But what I am going to do is tomorrow I am going to do the Natasha Denona eyeshadows. But then we're gonna go back to basics. So I'm thinking skipping every other day. One day be a basic, the next day will be something, whatever's coming out, because you guys really want to see these, and I don't blame you. But basics. So today I'm thinking skin prep, foundation, and concealer. I'm not going to go into contouring. I'm not going to overcomplicate anything. We're really just going to go in very basic with skin prep and foundation. So let's note that I've already done my skincare for the day. I've done my daytime skincare routine. I'm going to link it here on YouTube. Now, skincare is very personal. I have normal to dry skin, mainly normal. So we're not going to go in the details of skincare, but that is what I use. Now from here, we have our skincare done. We can start on our foundation. So we're going to move on to primer, and I'm going to show you a couple of primers for all skin types. I'm going to start with oily skin types. The first one I'm going to show you is the e.l.f. Matte Putty Primer. You guys can see it right here. You guys know that even though I have normal skin, this is my second one. I love using this through the center of the face. However, I like using it with a tiny brush like this one because you can really press it into the sides of your nose. Anywhere you really get oily, we can just really press it and pinpoint it. And a lot of times when we have oily skin, we think the more primer we put on, the better. That's not necessarily the case. You want to try to use the smallest amount. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how much I use of this primer. So I'm going to take the back of my brush here and I'm just going to pull out about that much. And that's going to be perfect for the center of my face. I'm going to make sure you can see how much is on here. And now from here, I'll just kind of do some circles. And what this is doing is just kind of warming it up on the skin. So we'll just kind of push that around and then definitely on the sides of the nose. So from here, I'm using my Anissa Eye Treatment Brush. And I'm just going to start to press it in. Just really take your time. A lot of us just kind of go in, we use our hands and we just kind of go. But using this brush really helps us see and helps us work it in. I can see what I'm doing more. I can pinpoint. A lot of us get oily through here. So just take your time. That's the number one thing with primers. I feel like they're the first things that we rush because we're like, it's primer. Take your time with your primer. Even though I have normal to dry skin, the reason I love using a brush is because I still get a little shiny right here above my eyebrow. So I really like to press the primer in through that area. And then of course now we're just going to take this down the nose. And I do not want this underneath my eye. No matter how oily you are, do not put a matte primer underneath your eye. And another tip, you guys want it in depth. This is in depth. Ooh, you asked for it. I told y'all Rose can go in depth. I'm out of control. So for my oily skin people, the only place I'm really not going to put the matte primer is I'm not going to put it through here because we can get a really nice pretty sheen through here. I did take it through here. We're not going to put it underneath our eyes, which I already stated. And you can kind of just brush a little bit through your jawline. Okay, so let's move on to normal to dry skin types. Even though I am normal to dry, I would still do this through the center of my face. And the reason I love this e.l.f. one is because it's not too drying, but it does absorb oil, so it works for a lot of skin types. Now, if you do have mature skin, you can skip the mattifying primer. It's not necessary for mature skin types. I'm telling y'all, it's in depth. Now, I want you to note, I want you to let this matte primer sink in for at least 2 minutes. Let it sink in. Let it melt into the skin and do its job. Now, I'm going to use another primer on the outer perimeter of my face. If you're oily, you do not need to do this, but since I am normal to dry, I just feel that it makes the outer perimeter of my face just look so wonderful underneath my foundation. So I love this step because a lot of times I don't like to wear highlighter because it can just add texture. Even though my skin doesn't have texture, if you add certain highlighters, they add texture to the skin and they just make it look all ruddy and just not that beautiful, smooth glass skin. I'm going to show you two primers that I just love underneath my foundation on the outer perimeter of my skin. The first, you guys already know, is the Smith & Cult. This is the Untouched Skin Brightening Primer. It is magic in a bottle. Not only does it just look so beautiful underneath foundation, but it evens out skin tone, and you can honestly wear it alone and just concealer. This, when I found it, honestly changed my makeup game. Now, if you are normal to dry, you could wear this through the center. I sometimes do, just kind of wear it all over, but I still love a mattifying primer through the center of my face. But this one right here, definitely give it a try if you haven't yet. Second primer I love on the outer perimeter of my face is the Lorac Glass Skin Primer. So beautiful. I love this so much. It is glass skin. That's exactly what it is, but it feels so lightweight. It never feels oily. It never moves foundation. A lot of times glass skin primers, they're very oily and they can just move things and separate things. This one does not. Honestly, sometimes I'll even mix it into a small part of my foundation and just put this on the high points of my face. It's highlighter in a bottle. And when I say that, don't think of shimmer. It has no shimmer. It'll just make the high points of your face glow. So what I'm gonna do for you today is I'm gonna do one side with this one so you can see. There we go. And then I'm gonna do one side with this one. So for this side, obviously, we're going to do the Smith & Cult. And I'm going to grab my Anissa Angle Care Brush. And I'm just going to work this through the outer perimeter. I know a lot of times you guys see that foam and you're like, oh my god, that's so much, but it just melts right in. So we're just going on the outer perimeter. I keep saying that, but I just want to remind you this is not going to go through the center of my face. And I really love using skincare brushes to apply my products. It's honestly very relaxing to me, and it can really pinpoint certain places on your face a lot better. So now I have a different brush, and I'm going to grab my Lorac Glass Skin Primer. I'm just going to do 2 drops right here on my brush. Notice this is a different brush. I didn't want to mix them. So we'll just go right through the high points of the face. Look how pretty that is already. And then the outer perimeter. Another reason I like to put a very, let's just do a different slide. So another reason I use dewy primers on the outer perimeter of my face is because I use cream contours. And you really want cream contours to be able to melt and move. So if it's too dry through here, your cream contour, it's going to patchy, it's going to lift. It's just not going to melt into the skin as it would if your skin is very hydrated and primed, very dewy. Okay, so now our primers should be absorbed and good to go. You can see this side's just a little bit more evened out. And remember, this is the Smith & Cult. I love this primer, but again, this one is just so beautiful on the high points of the face over here. What I'm going to do is I always want to include everyone, my combination and oily folks. So I'm going to do one side with a mattifying foundation, and then I'm going to do one side with my foundation that I normally wear for normal to dry skin. So I did get a new foundation today, so I wanted to see how it would work for everyone. This just came in the mail. I'm super excited. This comes out September 1st. I believe that's when I read. So this one is new from NARS. It's called the Soft Matte Complete Foundation. You guys know I love the concealer here. They actually sent me another shade. This is in Creme Brulee. I'm super excited. So this one is going to be matte foundation. So instead of just hopping in and going wild and let's just throw on foundation, there's still more application steps. Now there's no more products, but it's going to be about our tools now. Now for me, I love this brush. I used to use a sponge. If you've been with me a while, you know I was using a sponge every single day. I found this brush about a year ago and it changed the application of my foundation. This is the Anissa Pinnacle Foundation Brush. Just so I don't sound like a commercial or you guys don't think I'm just trying to sell you this brush, which you need it. It's amazing. I am going to go get a fresh beauty blender and I want to show you how I wring it out because you guys might just love sponges. We're all so different and I love that about makeup. So I'm going to show you that as well, but this is my favorite tool for foundation application. This is how much I love all of you. So some of you still tell me that you're using your Beauty Blender dry. And even though I'm not even going to use this today, I just wanted to show you. You don't want to use it dry. And the only time I use it dry is just for my eye primer. My eye primers, they are very wet and I don't want to add moisture. But your foundation is going to melt in so much better if you wet your Beauty Blender. Normally I would just run this under some water, squeeze it twice, but just for demonstration, we're just going to roll it in here, and I'm just pinching it, making sure it's absorbing all of that water. See, it's still not wet enough because it has not doubled in size yet. You got to get it nice and damp. So just keep doing this. You'll know because he'll get very large. He's still not done. We're going to let him, see how he's bubbling? He's not done yet. So just let him seep up some water here. And then some of you tell me, well, it's lifting my foundation. There's too much. That means it's too damp. You should never lift your foundation. You see how much water it's going to hold? So we're going to squeeze this out. Look how much is still coming out. But we're not done. Okay? There's still more. I'm an infomercial. Woo! Here I'm going to grab a paper towel and just press it into that. Now you have the perfect damp Beauty Blender ready for foundation and concealer application. But I still love a brush, but so many of you love a sponge, and I'm always here to help, and this is a very in-depth tutorial. So we're always going to shake our foundation, no matter what, always shake it. This is just going to make a big difference, make sure nothing has separated. So a lot of times in my videos, you'll see me go directly onto the skin. These are just visuals. If I was to do a client's makeup, I would never do that. So a lot of times, things are just very beautiful to watch in a video. What I would do is I would take the foundation and I would put it on the back of my hand. So that is going to be more than enough. We're just going to let that sit there and warm up. I also like to wipe off my foundations. That way they stay really pretty. They don't get too messy. I like to keep things clean around here. So we're going to let this warm up for about 40 seconds. So this is very crucial. So notice that I'm just taking from one side and then I am evening that out on my brush. It's going to make a big difference. That way we don't just have a big glob of foundation here, and a lot of times our first reaction is to come in and start going back and forth and swiping. Don't do that. So we're going to start on the jawline, and from there I'm just going to continue to press. Notice that I am pressing, and notice I have not picked up any more product. This is a really good match. We are just pressing. We're going to take our time, because if we need to add more, we can. But we want to start off with the smallest amount. And because we have a dewy primer on the outer perimeter, this matte foundation is not going to dry as fast. It will settle and it will dry down, but we're going to have a little bit more time because, let me stop this slide. So a lot of times when you're working with a matte foundation, it is going to dry down pretty fast. And when you continue to press or even swipe, which we do not want to do, it pulls and it makes the foundation lift. And that's when you start to see the cakiness. You really just want to take your time and press, and just using the smallest amount of any kind of hydrating primer just on the outer perimeter will help with that caking and that lifting. So a lot of times when you're working with a matte foundation, it is going to dry down pretty fast. And when you continue to press or even swipe, which we do not want to do, it pulls and it makes the foundation lift. And that's when you start to see the cakiness. You really just want to take your time and press, and just using the smallest amount of any kind of hydrating primer just on the outer perimeter will help with that caking and that lifting. You guys are saying I'm explaining it so perfect that honestly just warms my heart. For so long, even myself, I could not find someone that would explain things the way I needed them explained. So if I'm helping any of you, my entire life is made. So let's move on to the rest of the face. If you still feel that you have any hyperpigmentation or you want anything covered, you can just take a very small amount and go back over. For me, I'm going to leave it at this. And even if you want a little bit more coverage, remember that's why we did the dewy primer. That way if you want to go back in and layer, it's still going to stay nice and smooth with no lifting. I want you to also notice that I'm not taking the foundation underneath my eye. We don't want to put the foundation there. We're gonna leave that for color corrector and concealer. So we're just gonna continue to press this in, and then I'm gonna take this on my forehead. But for around my brow, I'm going to show you something else. So for around my brow, I'm just gonna switch brushes. This is my Anissa Angle Concealer Brush. I'm picking up a very small amount of this. I'm actually really vibing with this foundation. It feels mattifying, but it doesn't feel heavy or drying. So I'm loving it so far. We'll see how it wears. So just notice that I'm still pressing around my brow. Just really fast, I wanted to show you that this foundation is nice and matte. I'm really liking it. Remember, I just have that dewy primer through here, so you're gonna see a little bit, but the places that I don't, it's nice and matte. So for this side of my face, I'm gonna grab my favorite foundation at the moment. This is the Makeup Forever Reboot. Always give it a nice shake. I'm gonna do a pump. I'm actually just gonna do one pump because normally I do my entire face, so I do a pump and a half. So let's just do one. And let's get ready. So we're gonna do the same exact application. We're gonna even that out. You guys know we just gotta even it out a little bit on the back of your hand. That's just making sure that we don't have a big glob in one area. So we're doing the same exact application. I always start on my jawline. I really feel like this helps me go, okay, a lot of times I don't wear my foundations for quite some time. So if we start here, we can see if it's gonna match our neck instead of starting all the way up here or around here, and it's a lot easier to wipe off. So we're just gonna pick up a little bit more. I love this foundation, it's so pretty. And notice that I work in sections. So we started down here, we went through here, now we're going through here. And I'll just continue to do this until I get to my forehead. So with my foundation and through the center of my face, I like to use the smallest amount of product. Depending on if you have discoloration through here, you can do whatever you feel comfortable with, but for the most part, the center of the face, I really like to use the smallest amount. So I'm gonna do my ears as well, but I really want you guys to be careful. Try not to get the foundation in your ears, so really be precise. Look right into the mirror and just press on your earlobe just a little bit. So now remember, we have the matte side and we have the luminous dewy side. This one is definitely more full coverage, but this one looks great once you add concealer. But I'm really vibing with this one. So this might be our new fall foundation. Okay, so we're not gonna go too much into detail of color correcting. And the reason why is because I'll just do a whole another video on that. I am going to use peach because once we got our foundation on, you can kind of see a little bit more of the purple through here, a little bit of blue, and we wanna cancel that. So for my color corrector, I'm gonna grab this one from Bobbi Brown. I love it because it's very pigmented, but it's very, very lightweight. So I'm just dipping my brush in here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna tap it on the back of my hand. So it's just gonna warm it up a little bit. And it's also gonna make sure we don't have too much on the brush. So from here, we're gonna do a very light layer. I'm gonna start by pressing it. Notice that I'm pressing and I'm never dragging. Just go ahead and press that where we want to cancel those purple and blue undertones. And just a little bit of this color corrector is actually going to help us use less concealer. So if you're feeling that a corrector, you don't want to add it because it might be too heavy, it's actually going to help you use less product. Now for my concealer, I'm still doing my corrector, but my under eyes, and most everyone's under eyes, they tend to be a little dry. So concealer, we don't have to be as concerned about with our skin type. Now obviously I'm not going to show you one that has oil in it or anything of that nature, but I tend to like my concealers to be very thin, and that is going to work for all skin types. And just to make sure we don't have too much corrector on, I'm just going to take my paper towel and just press my brush. No product, I'm not using any kind of makeup remover. I'm just making sure we don't have too much product on this brush, and then from there we'll just go back in and press. Not sure if I showed you where I applied it. I'm really trying to be very thorough, but I will take it through here, and then I'll also take it over this way as well. I'm going to show you a more affordable concealer, and you guys know I love this one. It's one of my favorites. This is the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Concealer. It is so beautiful on the skin. Again, concealer, I don't want you guys to feel limited with your skin type. We use such a small amount, and all we're really looking for is pigment. So a lot of heavy concealers, let me think of one. the Tarte Shape Tape. That's a very heavy concealer. I wouldn't recommend it for normal to dry skin types, but the ones I'm going to show you are going to be good for all skin types. I'm a very visual person, so I'm going to show you my favorite concealer of all time. I know it's Kylie Cosmetics, but if you'll notice, it's a very thin formula. It's so thin, but there's so much pigment. So even when I go back and forth with it, you never see any streakiness or patchiness because there's so much pigment. And let's just say pigment is color. There's so much color in this concealer. I wish I had Shape Tape. It's been years since I've had it, so I could show you a difference, but I'm sure some of you have it. It's not a bad concealer. It's just a very thick concealer. It tends to lay very heavy on the skin. I'll show you one that's a little bit more heavy duty, but still very lightweight on the skin. This is the NARS, the Soft Matte. So this one is going to be the same as the foundation we have on this side. I love this one. I think we'll go ahead and use this one because it's a new color and I'm excited to use it. This one would certainly be good for all skin types. I want you to notice that I'm going to go into the pot. I'm going to do the same thing where I warm it up here on the back of my hand. We all know what happened here. I've always have a scratch on my hand. We'll go ahead and just warm that up a little bit, and then from there we'll just go ahead and start to press it underneath. Let's start with a very small amount and then step back and look at it. We still want a little bit more, so we'll do the exact same thing until we have it built up. Ooh, that looks really good. I also want you to notice that I'm just going to go down the side of my nose here. This is just going to help give our nose a little bit of definition. This is one of the reasons I don't contour my nose, because if we take our concealer and we just kind of go on the sides, you'll start to see the natural shadow here of my nose. I also want you to note that I'm not using a concealer that is 10 shades brighter because we don't have to. I would say that this is only 1.5 shades lighter than my natural skin tone, and it's still going to brighten, and it's actually going to have a little bit more of an evening effect. A lot of times when we use a very bright concealer, it's just going to cast even more shadows. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the same concealer on this side of my face as well. I just kind of press it there and I press it here. And then whatever's left on the brush, we'll just kind of lightly connect. But right through here is where I have the most fine lines. So that's where I'm trying to put the least amount of product. We are going to set the face today, but we're going to finish the rest off camera. I will show you how I set because I feel powder and foundation go together. So I am just going to continue to press the concealer through here. I want you to notice that I'm always pressing. Again, this is just going to help it melt into the skin, and it's also going to help it last a lot longer. I'm going to go with the tip of the brush and just tap it down my nose and then finish with whatever's left through the center. We'll just put a little extra on our chin, and a lot of times we tend to have darkness here on the sides of our mouth, so just put a little bit of the concealer there. If you guys didn't have any questions, just go ahead and put them here in this little box. I will try my best to answer them. I am trying my best to be as helpful as possible. So I'm going to finish the rest of my face aside from powder, but I'm not going to set underneath my eyes yet, and the reason why is because I'm still using cream products. So while you're still working with all of your creams, do not set any part of your face. Oh, really fast, I'm also getting a lot of questions about smile lines. As you can see, I am almost 32 years old and do not have them. But if you do have them, also no fillers by the way, this is just genetics. If you do have them, we're going to get to that. That's when we hop into powder. Y'all, we have already exceeded 100 snaps and it's already deleting them. I think that we might just have to film this one for YouTube. I went feral. I think we might have to. Should we just do it for YouTube? Alright, I'm just gonna have to stop here. I don't want it to delete anymore, but you guys are wanting it on YouTube. So like I said, I'm gonna save this. This is all golden. In fact, I want to reference it. But we're gonna have to finish the rest on YouTube.